Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Husky Pawdcast. My name is Jonas Fryer. Joining me today are guests Armaan, Valentina, and Lawrence. Welcome, guys. I'm glad you guys are here.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome. I also want to give a special shout out to our producer, Sarav. He is currently chilling on the couch back there. Thank you, Sarav.
Let's go.
He's the best. For those of you who don't know, which I assume is everybody because this is the first episode, the Husky Pawdcast is NUTV's conversational podcast where all guests will bring on their own topic to talk about. It can be anything from food to life lessons to kangaroos. If it can be found in the kitchen sink, it is welcomed here. So with that out of the way, how's everybody doing?
I am well. How are you?
Doing well. Staying dry on this potential nor'easter coming.
What do you even call what's happening right now? Like a pseudo rain, hail,
sleet, maybe?
I couldn't even walk the 3 blocks to the train after work.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, it's like pretty much every type of precipitation that could happen. Yeah. It's just like let's just do that today. But
I mean, usually I don't believe like Boston weather forecasts because they're always wrong. Mm-hmm. But this time around, it might be legit. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
I'm so excited to leave the house tomorrow.
For real.
And then we're gonna get, I think, like 70 degrees next week. So yeah, that's pretty on point for.
Let's go. Finally, we deserve it.
Yeah, we deserve it. Yeah, mm-hmm. It would be nice to get a spring at one point, but you know what? If we want to just keep going back and forth between winter and summer, I'm all for it. I'll take it. It's better than nothing. Yeah. All right, let's jump in. So I'll start with my topic here. So, one of the great things about NUTV is that everybody has a shared passion for film and video production, but everybody kind of has their own interests and their way that kind of brought them into this club. So I was just really curious in hearing just kind of what originally brought you into this. I also know you three are also being into news as well, and that's a perspective that I don't have. So I'm really curious. Valentina, I don't know if you wanted to go first.
Yeah.
Was there a specific moment that you knew you were interested in this, or has this always been a lifelong passion of yours?
So I didn't do film production until college. I had done theater my whole life and I just wanted to continue acting. But I didn't want to do theater because I didn't really love the environment of theater. Because I'm not a theater kid, just a kid who did theater.
Fair enough.
Despite the allegations. And I saw that NUTV was looking for actors at like fall activity fair my first semester here. And I was like, oh, okay, like I'll join. Like I said, like all I can do is act though. Like I will only act. I will not touch any equipment. And so I did a first week video and all I did was act. But then that was it. Like I showed up, I left and I like saw it and I was like, okay, like that was it. And then I didn't come back for a while until my next year, my first semester of sophomore year. I saw once again at the activity fair and I saw Adam Viazenko handing out stickers and I happened to be with Maya Abel. And she was like, oh yeah, I did NUTV last semester. And then I was like, oh really? Like, okay, like maybe I'll give it another shot. And so I joined again, was not super active. But then I did my first 24 hour and the rest is history. It was something that I kind of discovered. I had done like film as literature as a class in high school. So I loved like consuming film. I just never saw myself as someone who could like do anything. It took me a solid year of being in this club before I learned how to use any piece of equipment. And that first piece of equipment was the audio bag.
Awesome.
But yeah, that's my story. That was kind of long because my trajectory was kind of like, but ever since I like really committed to NUTV, I haven't looked back, and yeah,
that's awesome. So do you still see yourself like primarily focusing on the acting side, or do you just want to do?
Not. I mean, I love to act, and I'm taking an acting class right now, actually, and it's super fun. I haven't done it in a while, but I feel like the second that when I was marketing, because I only became marketing director like or pretty early on in my time in NUTV, and once I did that, I was kind of like, okay, I like being on shoots and like more the leadership side of it too. So I took a step back from just being acting. And while I enjoy it, I feel like I could use my time learning to do things that I didn't know how to do.
Sure.
Well, you're the producer of a whole series for NUTV now.
Yeah. So we've come so far. And that was crazy because that was something like at that point when I came up and pitched chemistry read, I didn't know how to use any equipment. And so I was just like,
Wow.
I really, really hope that people get on board for this, because if not, like, there's no way I can pull this off. And obviously, Adam Vyazenko, my rock, is the only reason I was able to execute it that first time around. And so that is the beauty of this club, I think, is like you can come in with zero knowledge of anything.
Absolutely.
And everyone is willing to help. Everything I have learned has just been from observing and asking questions, and just people being so kind, genuine about it.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I remember the first time like I was trying to use the audio bag, and I remember 3 different people came up and were like, "Oh, you just do this and this," and it's amazing just how simple it actually is once you just kind of get that help. Armaan, I want to kick it over to you. I know you're doing sort of like a news co-op now, so I'm kind of curious about that perspective as well. So like,
yeah, it's not entirely news, but what I will say about my experience with the film and TV side of things is that initially I wasn't really interested at all, because when I was in the 10th grade, I only wanted to be a mathematician. I was like obsessed with like math and logic and puzzles and everything. And my dream, and I think I've told this to a couple of NUTV people, but my dream was to be in Cambridge, in the UK, not Cambridge, Massachusetts, because a lot of people think Cambridge, Massachusetts.
The better Cambridge.
Exactly. So I wanted to be at the University of Cambridge to study mathematics and then hopefully get my doctorate and then become a teacher and professor of mathematics. That was like my goal and that was my dream. But I think after a certain point in time, I just kind of lost passion towards it, because I realized that even though it was something I was pretty good at, I just didn't enjoy it. And the one thing I really did enjoy was I loved writing. I just loved writing stories of any kind. And I remember my grandfather, he used to like tell me to write like a paragraph or a story on anything. And he'd just be like, okay, take 30 minutes, write a story about anything you want in the world. And I think him constantly giving me that exercise really allowed me to flourish my own creative prowess. And that's what really allowed me to understand the value of storytelling and how, I guess, film and TV in a way is a medium for that. And so I seriously started exploring that really in 11th and 12th grade, but there wasn't exactly an avenue for me to explore that until I joined NUTV. And so I remember Fall Fest 2022, I saw Adam Vyazenko and Ferris Bueller at the stall. And I was like,
At the stall?
I mean, it was, what was it? Like a
booth?
A booth.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a booth. I didn't recognize Ferris because he was in like his mask, like costume with like sunglasses and everything, shouting out, blabbering some nonsense. I was like, who is this guy? But Adam was like, hey, yeah, we've got 3 departments. You want to join whichever one you want. There's no experience necessary. So I was like, okay, perfect. This sounds great. And over time, I think I've come to really enjoy all facets of production, because just like Valentina, I didn't really want to do anything with equipment or like learn how to use any of these cameras and whatnot, because I mainly just wanted to write and act. But through my roles in this club, because I was sports director for a year, I think I've had to realize that in order for you to be a leader in the production sphere, you kind of have to be a jack of all trades. And so in that way, I had to teach myself how to use all these cameras. I had to ask questions. I had to go through several different workshops. And just in a year, I feel like I've made so much progress when it comes to how to use all of this equipment. And I think, again, that's really the beauty of this club, is that you can go from knowing nothing to pretty much knowing so much within such a short period of time. And in that process, you get to also meet some really, really good people. And so I'm super grateful to be part of this club. And for me personally, I just want to continue cultivating my storytelling prowess and keep learning how to use different kinds of equipment.
Can you still do math?
Well, okay, so I still love doing puzzles. I know there's like this website called Brilliant, and Brilliant has like daily puzzles and everything. Yeah. So it's like a website from the UK, and I still do puzzles on Brilliant pretty regularly. But in terms of like very like higher level math and whatnot, I've probably forgotten everything. But I feel like I'm still better than a lot of my friends, and I have bragging rights with that. So
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
What's 9 plus 10?
Oh, okay. Let me break it down. So 9 is equal to 3 times 3. All right. 10 is 5 times 2. You add it all together. That's 19. Yeah, there you go.
Nice.
I wanted to sound smart by like doing it like theoretically. Yeah, you can always take that out. It's fine.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
You're an honor student. You're smart either way.
Oh, thank you, Lawrence. I appreciate it.
I'm really curious just about the writing side. Have you found that learning just the different areas of production, has that improved your writing or changed like how you write your stories at all?
Yeah, most definitely. I feel like when it comes to editing a lot of videos, you really understand that a lot of the story is built in the editing room, like how you cut from different scenes and whatnot. Because again, a writer can only do so much. And then when it comes to the production side of things, it's up to the director, up to the cinematographer, how they want to, number one, interpret that story and whether they want to preserve that story. Because a lot of stuff gets cut out. And even in editing, like you can have a completely different story just through different cuts and whatnot in terms of what works. So I think I realized that I can't just keep focusing on my role. It's really about collaborating with the other people around me that allows me to get the most out of my story. And so, yeah, being a cinematographer, being a director, being an editor, that's definitely improved my writing ability in terms of how I approach a story, how flexible I am with the story, and how collaborative I am with others in the process of writing.
Yeah, I think the collaboration part of that for me, I think is what kind of jumped out because I was always kind of like growing up like writing stories myself. And I was even considering for a bit, like, do I want to go down sort of like an author path? Like, am I going to be a writer? But I think just the fact that like working with people and like bouncing off ideas, I think that's just like a truly special thing. And I don't really see that in a ton of like other sort of like creative fields or specifically like storytelling fields. So I think, particularly NUTV does a really, really great job of kind of fostering that. Like, just the amount of help that everybody is immediately willing to jump on for every project is really special. So, Lawrence, I want to hear from you.
So I came into Northeastern, knowing I wanted to join NUTV. I was looking at whatever they call it, the club circular thing with all like the 500 whatever clubs. And I saw NUTV and I was like, yes, I want to join NUTV. And I also went to the fall 2022 club fair and I did not see Adam Vyazenko. I saw Mimi. Mimi was the first person that I saw at NUTV. Was it Mimi? I forget. I think it was Mimi. And no, it was Eden. It was Eden. Just kidding. And I was like, yeah, I want to join NUTV. And I knew going in that it wasn't like, I got the vibe that it wasn't like, such a serious club with deadlines and whatever. And in high school, I didn't do any film production, journalism. I didn't go to a good high school. So we had the basic science, English, math, whatever. And I had no interest in anything because it was just something that I had to do. There was no like special interest classes. So I really didn't have any interest in anything before college. I actually started like my senior year of high school. I started a school newspaper, like a digital newspaper. And I started to get interested in journalism. And actually it was my junior year and then senior year, they turned it into a journalism class that everyone took. Not everyone, like everyone who was in the class. And then I started to get really interested in journalism. I just feel like my time in high school, I was like robbed because of the pandemic and I really didn't get interested in anything that I really could be interested in. And I would argue that I'm like not, on the film production side, I'm not as interested in it as some members of NUTV are, but I stay because I love the people here. And I still am not very savvy on like the, even the cameras that we have here, what you can do with the cameras. And yes, I have broken one piece of equipment. One.
Should we cut that part out?
Everyone knows.
But my goal, like last semester, I feel like I got really more interested and more. I had more time to like do film production stuff, and I actually like one of the things I want to get better at is just like executing things better. Planning better, because I wrote a screenplay for the screenwriting class over the summer and I wanted to produce it last semester and I did not like the way it came out because it was so rushed. And one of the things, like the actor, there were so many actors and we had to get our times lined up and there was really only one weekend that we could do that, and so everything was rushed and I didn't have time to think. And it came out really badly and I don't want to edit it because it's going to come out really badly. And honestly, I've been thinking about like just doing it again and because I want to take more time with it. I just now that I'm on co-op, I really don't have time to like do some of the things I really want to do, like making. I've rarely been in NUTV this summer, I feel like, or this semester, and I really want to do like more of that. Last semester was so fun. I had like so much time to just do NUTV stuff. I was on so many shoots. So I just feel like I want to get more into that again. And then like I am like I feel like I'm the most newsy person here. So I feel like I'm more invested in that. I really don't have an interest in like at least yet of like I want to do this as a career. Like I'm on my co-op right now and I would not. Someone asked me the other day, would you apply for a job after you're done? And I said no, because many reasons, but I wouldn't want a job like sitting at a desk all day and writing. I'd rather be more creative with what I do. Like honestly, I'm jealous of like the reporters that like go out and get video and interview people and whatever. Like that's something I feel like I want to do. And I want to get better with all of our equipment. Because the first time I really knew our equipment was when I took my EP test and I had to learn our equipment. And I feel like I'm just a fake EP right now. But I want to learn, like when Peter does his like demonstration of the FX6 every once in a while.
4 hour demonstration.
Which
He did it at 2 a.m. during 24 hours. It was fantastic.
Yeah. I should listen more to it. I would have listened, but it was 2 a.m. And I was the leader of my group.
That's fair.
So tired. But I want to like be more. I should have gone to like the workshops that we did this semester. I just really want to get more involved in like knowing how to work equipment. So I wouldn't say I'm not interested in film production. I just wish I had more time to like do things that make me interested in film production. And I've told this to so many people in the club. When they like, I feel like, I guess a rookie, because so many people in this club have a vision, like Dennis's shoot, and Owen has like a lot of like, I have so many plans for this like short film or whatever. And I'm like not like that. I don't plan as well. And I feel like that's something I should get better at. And it's like when they're editing and it's like, this shot doesn't look good because of this lighting. And I'm like, it looks fine. I want to know what like actually looks good, because it looks good to me, but what looks good to other people.
But I think that's what makes the collaborative nature of this so special is like you can get other people's input, because obviously like when you're working on the same thing for so long, like you're gonna see it the same, like getting it. And that's what's so nice about our office too, is that like you can just be like, oh, can I get a pair of eyes on this, or can someone just like tell me if this sounds good, and like people will be honest and like give their input. And like you know, like planning, like no one likes to plan, like that's obviously one of the more unfortunate parts of like productions. But when you have a group of people, or like maybe you know someone who's better at organizing, like I don't know, when to meets or something, you know, like you can just, everyone wants to help each other.
Yeah.
And that's what's awesome.
I've learned that reactions are better than when to meets. Yeah, nobody fills out my when to meet.
Yeah, no one fills out any when to meet.
I feel like also the thing is we have such short semesters, and there's like no time for anybody to do anything. And it's so hard to like get people together. I don't know why all our shoots are scheduled on Tuesday nights this semester. But I feel like that's when people get together to do their shoots. And some shoots, I have like very bad tunnel vision. Like some shoots in NUTV, especially this semester, take like months to do. They're like spread out over like a long period of time just because of people's schedules. And I'm just like that person that's like rushing to finish because I want to see the final product, and then it doesn't turn out to be like as good as I wanted it. So
I do want to say that when I read Murder Roulette, I was very impressed. And I feel like because it's such a good script, you should definitely take your time with it. I mean, we have a lot of time next semester, the semester after that. So make sure you have a good cast, a good location. And I mean, you're surrounded by such good people. So we're all willing to help you make sure that your creative vision comes to life.
One of the things that like when I pitched this so many times at the entertainment meeting and like nobody joined. So I just want people, I'm going to look over it with Claire actually and see if like any of the stuff is viable. But if not, I will do it again. And if I do it again, please join the channel.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I'm already on the channel, so you're.
I wasn't here last semester, so that's my excuse.
Yeah, no, but I mean, you know, what you're saying about sort of like the planning side of things, I think that's one of the most interesting things just about our club and about film production is that all like the sort of soft skills you learn too, and like learning how to plan and learning how to organize, like that's something that is very, very challenging for everyone. And I know for myself, like that's something I wasn't expecting going into a lot. And you can easily say like, oh, I have this project. Yeah, I'll just rent some cameras and, you know, get a microphone and it'll be good. But, you know, a lot of planning has to go into everything. So I think that's definitely a big skill that, you know, everybody ends up kind of learning. I will say you did mention something about how, you know, when you're looking at your footage, you're like, you understood like it looked good to you and you wanted to know if like, it looked good to everybody else.
Like,
you know,
would this look good in like the professional sphere?
Sure. You know, I think for me, one thing I kind of learned about my own productions is the number one person you should be making it for is you, and you should be making stuff that you want to watch as well. And I found that once I've kind of like let go of that feeling of being like, okay, you know, is this good? Like understanding it's good for me. There's going to be other people that love it as well, and that's kind of see it the same way. And so like that's definitely a really tricky thing. But you know, it's helpful to know that there's always going to be an audience for everything, and there's always going to be people interested. And that's just kind of anything with a creative project that, you know, you're kind of wondering, like, you know, I'm looking at the scripts I wrote, like, oh God, is anybody actually going to read what I wrote or care about what I'm making?
It's
I'm guilty of that.
Yeah.
I will like, I feel like I have no time to read other people's scripts. And then I just show up for the fun. At least I show up.
That is the best part though, is just kind of like just hanging out and meeting all these great people on the shoots.
Absolutely.
That's one of the like, that's one of the reasons like I have stayed in NUTV for all the semesters I've been here. Like, especially last semester, like one of my favorite things to do was just hang out in the office with people. Like it's just so fun to do. And I'm sad we're losing it. But last semester when you're hanging in the office, that was like one of the most fun things to do. And someone was saying the other day, like when like a lot of other clubs around campus, you're like, you go to Cheese Club or you go to Hunt News. When you're in NUTV, you're in NUTV.
Yeah.
You
The
never
office
leave.
curse.
We snatch you.
Yeah.
Once you're in, you're in.
You're
Yeah.
Let's switch up topics. So, Lawrence, I know you had a topic about saving versus spending money. I want to hear more about this.
Yeah. So like I said before, I'm on co-op right now and I don't get paid what some of my other friends get paid, minimum wage, boo. And so like I've been paid, I've been on my co-op for I guess 3 months now. And I've made money and I've been told to save, and I'm like, what am I saving for? What big thing is coming that I need to save for? So I felt so much pressure, and everyone's like so I am going to do fun things this summer, but other people were like, I'm going to this place and then this place and then this place. And it's like, I've never gotten to do that before. And you have been telling me like you never will after college. So like you've told me like now is your time to like travel, and yes, you've told me that. Like now is your time to travel during college because you won't get to when you're done with college. You may not remember that. I don't know. But I like booked a trip the other day spontaneously to San Francisco because I didn't know what I was saving for. And yeah, I'm going to be I'm an adult, but I'm not a for real adult yet. I'm not living like off my own money. So it's like, where does this pressure? I know where the pressure comes from to save, but like, what do you guys think?
Yeah. Valentina, I'm curious.
Yeah. I have a lot of thoughts about this because I think we go our whole lives just like whatever our parents raise us with, like their kind of mentalities towards money, we just, use as our own. And actually, the past couple of times that I've gone home, I've had some like issues with my parents about this because my parents are very, very frugal and they don't spend like at all. And I think that comes from being immigrants and, you know, like wanting the best for their kids and not. And so, yeah, they're also just like very simple people. And I kind of adopted that myself. And like in college, like I'm very frugal. That's why I'm surprised. It might have been someone else that said that because like I don't travel very much and I don't encourage anyone
maybe
to.
It wasn't you.
Yeah, it's okay. But I am very much like a saver and I'm a big investor. I have stocks, quite a few stocks, because that's my dad's like conditioned me into doing that. And I think what's hard is like finding the balance between yes, like you want to be realistic about your future because like obviously right now we like some of us have like continuing support from our parents, but like in the future we won't and whatever the realities may be. But also you don't want to be living a low quality life just for the sake of the future. And I think that's where because then my parents would get mad at me and be like, why are you not eating like all these foods? And I was like, well, because I'm trying to save money. They're like, but you need to hubble. And I was like, but that's how you raised me. And so like, you know, we get into all these disagreements. And so that's been a really tough thing for me to kind of navigate is like, what is my approach? And like, because now I have made my own money like with co-op and I will continue. And now I am in charge of a lot more of my spendings. Like that's all me now. Like that's not my parents anymore. So there comes a certain point, I think, where you just have to figure out what works best for you and for your peace of mind too. Cause like a lot of people, like they do get like emotional, like really like retail therapy or like going on, like that does help people's mental health a lot. And like, for me, I think that stresses me out more than anything. Like, so that's why I don't spend a lot. And it's just figuring out what works for you and also what's realistic for you.
Do you feel like it's hard? Like, I feel like we haven't fully done this yet, but do you feel like it's going to be hard to like wean off your parents?
What does that mean?
Like, right now, like my parents pay my tuition and pay like, you know, most of the things that go on in my life. So I feel like it's going to be a little difficult for me to like actually wean off of them. Like, you know, they send you to college and they're like, you're on your own now, but you're really not.
Yeah.
I think for me, I'm just very like honest with my parents and I say like, tell me when like it's like, you have to let me like, I don't know, like for things. Okay, you have to start paying for your own groceries. Okay, now I need to start budgeting. Like I adopted budgeting. I'm also a business major, so I feel like I have like the toolkit.
You have the whole thing planned
out. And so like I budget every month but even if I'm like not entirely independent of them yet, I still try to practice budgeting so that when I am, I'm set. You do everything in your power that you can, but that's it. That's all I've got to say.
Yeah. You talked about like kind of like striking that balance. Are you someone you feel like you have that balance and you're going to keep it through your whole life? Or do you think that balance is going to change like depending on what phase of your life you're in?
Yeah, I've thought about this because obviously I'm not making the most money that I'm going to make in my life right now as a college student. Like if my frugality will get less extreme when I start making more money. And I think I will always just be a saver. That's just like fundamentally ingrained in my brain. But I also know what I prioritize spending. Like I like food and coffee a lot. So that's where a lot of my spending goes. I don't buy a lot of clothes though. So I don't think like even if I become a millionaire, I'll probably be like buying like Ep01 or Whole Foods and
Valley Girl life.
So California. But I probably still won't be like shopping at Balenciaga or anything. Yeah. It's because that's how I'm.
Fear like what's going to happen like right out of college? Because like we go to Northeastern and we have co-ops, but that 91% of people have jobs after they graduate or go to grad school. I feel like that's like not true. So are any of you like afraid of like what's going to happen like right out of college?
No, I don't think so. I mean, for me, so I read a book called The Millionaire Fastlane. And I know it's a very cheesy title, but it's actually a very, very helpful book. It was gifted to me by my roommate last year. And basically what it talks about is the abundance versus lack mindset. And pretty much what it is that if you have a lack mindset, you're pretty much afraid of spending money on things. And I feel like that's what it is with people who are not just very frugal, but just like cheapskates in general. Like they just don't.
Thank you.
I'm not addressing you. I'm addressing like America's biggest cheapskates on like TLC because they do absurd stuff. But I think budgeting is a good thing if you have certain priorities. I feel like college is a time where you have to prioritize what's good for you and who you want to surround yourself with. I understand that there are certain basic essentials like food is essential, rent is essential, water, blah, blah, blah. And you should definitely go out of your way to spend a certain amount on that. But I feel like, yeah, there are things that certain people say, yeah, but I want to go to Cabo or I want to go to Turks and Caicos, spring break, blah, blah, blah. I know some people who like during midterms, they were in Greece. And I was like,
during midterms,
I'm like, why are you in Greece? Like, why not? Like, it's college, man, live it up. And I was like, I don't know if that's responsible. So, I mean, the way I was raised, my dad is a bit more frugal than my mom, but I feel like both of them trust me in terms of how I spend my money. And they're like, look, we want you to be responsible, but we don't want you to hold yourself back. Like, I didn't come all this way to just like stay in my dorm, like reheat like frozen food all the time. Cause like, that's not how you want to live life for 4 years, Cause you only get to go to college once. And for me, it's about understanding, okay, there are times where I want to treat myself and there are times where, I want to spend money on things that are important to me. Like for me, I'm a big reader. And so I'd rather spend $50 on books than like maybe $25 on food. Because for me, like that knowledge that you learn from reading, that's invaluable and that stays for your life. And that kind of allows you to make certain decisions in the future. And so I guess for me, it's all about having priorities and trying to understand what is important for you and your own self-development. Because as a college student, you have to really figure out who you are and you have to understand what you're consuming as an individual. And money plays a big part in that. And I feel like you got to spend more on things that are important to you and things that'll set you up for success. But obviously cut out all the fluff. You know what I mean? And for me, I haven't exactly ventured out so much, but I feel like I'm not necessarily someone who just spends time in his dorm all the time. So, I mean, I can always do better, but I'm proud of the way I've handled things so far.
I feel like the thing you said about like learning who you are, I feel like I've gotten better at this, but when I first came to college, like I knew who I was, but I wasn't like the same as everybody else. Like, I came into, I don't love, like there are people here who love like partying every weekend, alcohol, drugs, every weekend, every day, whatever.
Could never be me.
And that's just not me. And I felt like I was just like left out of everything. And it's like all these people are going to parties and it's like, not that I want to go to these parties, but like, am I missing out?
I feel like that's how you build maturity though, because at the end of the day, you understand what's important to you. I mean, look, these things may seem important in the context of like college, but in the grand scheme of things, like once this is all said and done, nobody will really care. And I mean, like looking back on like high school and everything in terms of like popularity and who was being invited to parties and whatnot, like now that I've graduated from high school, I don't even remember who was popular in my grade. Or where they are and what they're doing. They're probably just regular people living their life. And I was like, okay, so they're not actually that important. So I feel like you don't necessarily want to put things and events, especially material things, on pedestals, because it's important to understand, okay, you need to understand what's important to you and your own growth and look at the big picture. And so I feel like, parties and whatnot, like you were saying, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing that you're missing out because you want to save your money and spend it on more important things to you and that give you happiness. So you should definitely continue pushing towards your own passions rather than focusing on things that may seem cool and things that may seem glamorous, but don't actually give you much in the future.
Yeah, I think it comes back to like we were talking about with setting the right priorities and just kind of like understanding you and like understanding like what's actually meaningful to you and what isn't. I can kind of talk about this. I've kind of done a 180, and I'm actually very much in a very spending mindset now. I think that's just from being raised in a very sort of like frugal way as well, and like knowing the importance of saving. Like obviously it's important to save and to sort of plan out for the future and just have a basic plan and not, spending it on kind of like unnecessary material things. But also at the same time, like I realized I was kind of like adopting that mindset of being, okay, I'm going to live super frugally now and save up. And then eventually at some point, I'll have everything I need to live the life that I want. And, you're kind of realizing you're like sort of like delaying your happiness to a point that, not to be morbid, but you might not even know you'll reach. So again, it's like striking that balance. Like, yeah, absolutely. Like it's important, start saving for retirement in your 20s and it'll pay off in the long run. But also,
you may not make it retirement.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's like, make sure you're also saving money aside to spend now.
And even if you do make it to retirement, like, your bones could be like frail and you could like not enjoy your vacations to like Cabo because your body hurts.
Yeah, I think I saw like an interesting chart. It's like in your 20s you have time and you have your health, but you don't have money. But then later in life you have money and you have time, but you might not necessarily have your health. And so like it's again like just kind of like, I think most of us nowadays we've been raised in a way to appreciate saving. I think if you're someone who's thinking about saving, you don't really have to worry about not saving enough because you're probably just naturally going to be spending or saving. And so, it's important. Obviously, don't just go spending on like willy-nilly on just whatever. But, like for me, like I love just paying for like experiences going on like trips and stuff. So I try to make sure, like every year I try to go on like 1 or 2 like trips, and I don't mind spending the money because I'm thinking that, the couple $100 I spend now is probably going to be more valuable than like the $100, in 20, 30 years. So.
And I think what's also important, and I don't know if we've talked about this, but spending money on other people out of gratitude. I think that's, that act of kindness and that act of selflessness is also something that not a lot of people, or at least a lot of people take for granted, because I feel like just going out of your way to like show someone that you care about them, I think is so important. And I know like my parents do this all the time with their friends whenever like we're going to go visit family and everything. Like, okay, let's buy something for them, or like let's get a gift basket or a care package or something like that. And I was like, wow, this is pretty expensive, don't you think? And they're like, look, they're our friends, we care about them and they care about us, and we know they do the same for us. And so I think that aspect of just, understanding what's important to you, especially when it comes to the connections and relationships that you have, I think that's also super important as well. And that's hopefully something we should continue to cultivate as college students as well. Make sure that you give back to the people who care about you as well.
Yeah, I definitely find it much easier to spend money on other people than myself. Like
100%.
Yeah, definitely.
It takes a really long time for me to buy clothes because I'm like, it doesn't fit right. And I hate shopping for clothes. But for my friends' birthdays, oh my gosh, I love splurging. And I think it is that like, like love languages, gift giving I definitely think that gift giving is my love language. And there's just something, even though like money isn't an indicator of how much you care about someone.
Let's dive into the next topic. Valentina, you want to talk about soulmates and dating. So
yes,
I'm excited for this.
I am notorious for being obsessed with talking about this stuff. I just think it's so interesting hearing how everyone has different beliefs and inputs because everyone just has very different experiences. And I think like that there's just so many things that lend itself to that, like your upbringing, your parents' influence again, and your own personal experiences that you've had. But it's something that I love talking about with people, like in new settings and new groups of people that I meet. But just general thoughts on dating and all that stuff. But specifically the debate on whether you believe in soulmates or not. If anyone wants to start off.
Where do you fall on the debate?
Ooh, so actually, contrary to popular belief, I do not believe in soulmates. I believe that you can definitely find someone that you can be with your whole life for sure. but I don't think there's one person on this earth that you are destined to be with. I think life is made up of the decisions that we make. I'm not a super big believer in like fate and like your one path. It's like in our hands. So that's why I think that lends itself to me not believing in soulmates. But yeah, I'm so curious to hear about what you guys think and why.
I think love in general, you get to love by like the decisions you make. Like you unintentionally make decisions that lead to other paths. So, I almost didn't go to school here. I almost went to school in upstate New York. And if I did that, I would not have met my person. So it's all about the decisions you make. And I definitely could have been with someone else if life worked out that way. But the one thing that I always hear, that I've been hearing more recently, is I want to live my truth. And I hate that because number one, it's grammatically incorrect. And number two, you live whatever truth you want to live. You make decisions that like lead to other decisions. And it's like you have control over your life. You make good decisions. If you are making good decisions, you'll make other decisions. And that will just lead you down a path. Not necessarily your path, because there could be several decisions. So.
Yeah, I'm really curious just about just like the idea of kind of choosing kind of the right path. Is there like a point where that you're making the right decision, or is it something like you feel like you learn in kind of hindsight?
Well, when it comes to decision making, I am not as someone who changed my major 99 times. And I'm still not sure I'm on the right path. I think you take a chance on yourself. You take that risk. And it might turn out to be wrong, and it might turn out to be right. And that's life. You can never predict the future. But when it comes to love, you can't be like the people. I love the show, but I hate the intention. Like I love Love is Blind. I love watching like the people on the show, but I hate the intention of like, I am going on this show and I am going to find love. That is the only, I don't care who it is. I want to find love. And I love the show, but it irritates me. Like, why do you want to force yourself to fall in love?
So going off what you said, there's like an interesting analogy on falling in love. And it's that if you walk onto a highway and you ask to be run over, no one's going to run over you. People are just going to be like, they're going to swerve past you and everything because you're there. But if you walk onto the highway without like having the intention of being run over, then there's a chance that, it's a very, very dark analogy, but that's kind of how love goes. For
a lighter thing.
Yeah, that's kind of how love goes.
That's love.
Mm-hmm.
It's unexpected.
Getting run over by a car is love.
It's unexpected. It's something you don't really see coming. And I feel like, I totally understand what you're saying about like, don't force love. I feel like you just gotta cultivate the connections that you have. And sometimes you go closer to some people and sometimes you don't. And I feel like that's really how you found your true person, is that it doesn't really happen instantly. In some cases it does, but in some cases you really gotta develop that connection with somebody. And that's when you're like, okay, maybe there's some potential here. And it's all about just being open and being able to communicate with people, because that's so important.
Once you do like establish a connection, do you believe like, I don't know, like, do you believe like this is my connection? Like once you have like, maybe you've accidentally found your connection, but once you found it, do you believe in instantly being like, this is right for me? And I say that as someone who said, I love you one day.
Oh man. All right.
Wow. So, and still a year and a half later.
It worked out. I think, this is kind of aligned with what I was going to ask next. Like, do you go in, like, how would you view an ideal relationship? Like someone that you unexpectedly develop feelings for, like as you develop a friendship with them, or like immediately you feel like a connection with them upon meeting them, or like kind of what you were saying, like
So like I went on Tinder and I didn't, I went on Tinder as a joke and I didn't expect to find anything. And, you know, everyone was like, Tinder doesn't work. And honestly, most people it doesn't work for. But it unexpectedly worked.
Yeah.
And that's great. I mean, that's the goal with kind of like online dating in general. Like, and I feel like, I think especially for kind of like our generation too, I think dating has just gotten a lot harder.
Definitely.
I think when just everybody's kind of behind screens and it's just really hard to kind of get to know people. So that's fantastic that it ended up working for you. Like it's hard out there for people. I think especially,
definitely.
You know, what do you guys think about kind of like dating like in college and I guess kind of for like our generation? Like,
do you
think
feel
it's
like
gotten
the
easier or
more
harder?
options you have for like love? Because we're like making this dating app and Love is Blind and The Bachelor and The Bachelorette and all these different options for like how you can find love. Do you feel like it takes away from what love is? I feel like there's more options and I feel like there's more divorce in our generation.
Well, yes, that is a fact.
Yeah.
I think it doesn't take away from love, but I think when you have a higher number of alternatives, me with my communications theory, sorry. When you have a higher number of alternatives, you are less likely to settle down with the first option that you were presented. That's also just like a fact. So when you feel like, okay, I can just move on to this other app, or I can go, you know, I can keep swiping and find someone even better for me, then you're never going to
find the person.
Yeah. And so
true.
I definitely think that the dating apps have kind of warped our perception of that, have made us a bit pickier, if you will. But even like outside of the context of the dating apps, I think dating in college is really hard because of hookup culture. And like my experience with it is that everyone kind of assumes that everyone is on the same page of like, no one actually wants to be in relationships, but that's not the case. Like everyone has such different approaches to it. And I feel like that's something that we have to get over ourselves and just set that boundary or establish the expectation from the get-go. And that's what's made, in my experience, like dating in college super hard.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, for me, like I am someone who's built for the long run. And I feel like a lot of people nowadays, they fall in love with like idealized versions of people and like pixels, if you say, on a screen rather than like actually getting to know someone. And I feel like for me, it's all about just, I'm a very old fashioned person. I would just love to get to know people like one-on-one and whatnot, like go out for dinner or something like that. I feel like that's the best way to really get to know somebody, just like something casual, nothing too serious. But, you know, you take steps to eventually get there. And hopefully you cultivate that relationship into something more. And I feel like when it comes to dating apps and whatnot, it's like almost like, you know, swiping from one person to the next. And it's not necessarily something I'm a big fan of because I didn't necessarily grow up around people who were big online daters and whatnot. For me and my family, I come from a very traditional Indian family. And so, I mean, my parents fell in love. That's how they got married. And a lot of my parents' friends were arranged. And I was never really a fan of like arranged marriages because I always felt like, you know, I'm a big Ted Mosby fan. And I always feel like I'm looking for that one person. I want to find that one person. And I want to be able to have the autonomy to get there. And so it's all about just meeting people in person, getting to know people for who they really are, and always appreciating the good in everyone because obviously we're all flawed. And I think if we just fall in love with idealized images of people and idealized symbols of people that a lot of dating apps kind of accentuate, then I feel like, I don't know, your expectations are always going to be let down. And it's always going to be impossible for you to find a match with somebody if you're actively just trying to look for certain people with certain qualities because you're never going to find someone with every single quality that you desire. And so you just got to put yourself out there in a genuine way and try to get to know someone because that's how it really starts off.
You were saying like you want to meet that one person. Does that mean you want this person has to have these qualities and I want that one person and one person only and they must have these qualities?
I think more than qualities, I feel like we have to connect over a certain struggle because I feel like that's where love comes from, is that two people should connect over something they lack. And I feel like rather than like certain qualities in people, like, oh, certain physical qualities, certain like emotional qualities and whatnot, it's all about having like similar experiences to certain people and finding out whether they're there to support you and you're there to support them. I feel like if you have a similar mentality and if you have a similar outlook on life, I think that's what I mean by the one, rather than like, oh yeah, you know, blonde, 5'10", blah blah blah. You know, that's like, no, that's not how it works. Because for me, I always try to remain open and I try to get to know people for who they really are, rather than just looking at it on the surface.
Yeah, well, I think there's an interesting through line through everything, and I think it's a point that you brought up was just kind of the value of also having that friendship as well in a relationship. And I think that's why it can be so frustrating when people are like, yeah, I'm looking for love. It's like, I feel like they're kind of ignoring the most important part, which is like, it is a relationship and you want to connect with the person and maybe not just like qualities that you're looking for.
Exactly.
You know, and it's like, it's okay to say like, okay, like I might, you know, want or need something or need, you know, something from a relationship. But at the same time, like the foundation has to be the connection between like the two people.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, I think that it also makes it really hard for our generation, like with the hookup culture and everything, where it's like, I feel like that sort of aspect is diminished a little bit, which is a shame.
Yeah.
But thankfully there are also still plenty of people who feel that way. So it is not doomed for everybody out there, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
And in a way, that connection is almost like indescribable. Like when you have a connection with someone, it's almost like you know that feeling, but you can't describe it. And I think that's when you know you found that person. And I'm not sure whether you've experienced this, Lawrence, but it's almost like you feel it rather than you can actually describe it and understand it. And I think that's what's so powerful about love, is that, you know, sometimes you can't really put pen to paper about what it is about someone that you really love about them. You just feel it with them, and you feel like you're someone who you can really be yourself with them. And so I think that's what really love is all about, is that if you have a connection where you can't really describe it, rather than like, oh yeah, this person has these kind of qualities, it's almost like you got to feel love rather than actually going out and venturing into certain qualities and exploring what it is.
Do you guys believe that you have to love yourself before you love somebody else? Or do you think like that someone else can teach you how to love yourself?
That's a good question.
I think I've seen a lot of, it's interesting because like, I definitely think that you need to have a good relationship with yourself, like if to have a good relationship with other people. However, I feel like I see a lot of people who have very low self-esteem and they derive their self-esteem from male validation, or like they're constantly chronic daters, as called, like always has a new relationship. And like, it's very obvious that like they don't love themselves before loving other people. But those are actually different types of attachment styles. Again, not to get too comm theory, but
she's
like,
a comms major too.
Yes, I am business and comms. But there's like, when you have a positive internal working model of self, or if you have a negative internal working model of self, but a positive working model of others, then you're going to derive a lot of your self-esteem from other people, and you see other people more positively, even if you see yourself really negatively. You're still able to have relationships, but yeah, you don't really need to love yourself to have relationships. But obviously the ideal is to strive for having both a positive internal working model of self and a positive external working model of others.
I think it's like sort of that idea of like taking time to date yourself as well. And I think that's something, unfortunately, a lot of people kind of don't end up doing. Because that is, I think, obviously like one of the best parts of relationship is like how much you're going to grow as a person. I feel like that's almost sort of accelerated a little bit, but also taking time to sort of, you know, date yourself and just kind of like figure out yourself. I think there's parts of you that you can only figure out if you kind of explore that on your own. Obviously you're going to find out a lot exploring with someone else as well, but I think also making sure you know you before you're kind of venturing out and finding someone, I think is a really important thing as well.
And some people like don't have room to like love anyone else besides themselves, and that's okay, I feel like. And not to get like too off topic, but I had a question, and this is a very like loaded question, but with a person, with a partner, do you guys believe in marriage?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. You mean like the institution
signing
of
the
marriage?
yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to get
definitely.
married one day.
I would love to get married for sure.
After the age of 30. That's just my own. I know everyone has different. I know that we have different like views on that.
Yeah.
I think that is part of what you're saying, like getting to know oneself. I feel like I have so much growth left to do as a person that I cannot imagine that being cut short because I have to have children or something, you know, like, and I think it is a little different for women versus men. The idea of marriage just because of the facts, and everything. So that is why for me personally, like it does feel like it kind of like interrupts my life a bit, but I would like to,
For sure.
like, I would love to have a family one day.
Yeah, same with me. I would say maybe 25 to 30 would be a good time to get married, or at least at the end of your 20s would be a nice time to get married. I definitely believe in marriage because I come from a family where we all do things to support each other and we have this like collectivist mindset. And I'd love to be able to continue that with my own family and teach those kind of family values that you have of staying together and being there for one another. Because I do feel like there are aspects of just like American culture where everything is so individual centered that I feel like you lose touch with like that core family values that you really have. And I'm so grateful for my family and what they taught me about always staying together, whether it's difficult, whether it's easy, you got to stick to it, support each other. And yeah, I feel I'm a big advocate for getting married, and I'm hoping that happens soon.
Ooh.
I feel like
Not that soon, but yeah.
Next week.
Yeah, tomorrow,
I feel like
guys.
I'm a very like hurry up and wait kind of person. Like I'm always excited for change, and then change happens, and then I'm waiting for something else to come. And it's like I feel like I can never like settle down for like how it like for how something could be. Like I can never settle down and just be like, this is my life. I want to like be this way for some time. So I feel like, I don't know, you said we have different views. Honestly, when it comes to it, when like I feel like I said like 23 or something like that. I feel like when it comes to it, I'll be like, I'm a little scared. I won't do that just
It's a
yet.
scary thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is inherently like a big risk, and yeah, I mean, it's also scary too because it's one of those things where you kind of have to give up control a bit. Like it's a two-way street, and you know, no matter what you're doing, you can't necessarily always control the outcome of it, and so you can only really just control your side of things. You really have to have just like faith that it'll work out, and so
You have to. Yeah.
Yeah, it's another thing. It's like it teaches you a lot, and I think that's an amazing thing about kind of relationships, just in general, whether it's romantic or not, is that it teaches you a lot about yourself, and also just kind of teaches you a lot of like important life lessons I don't think you would have gotten otherwise. Like there's some things, no matter like how many times your parents tell you as like important lessons, like you almost like know it intuitively, but you just don't like truly believe it until you experienced it yourself. And I think that's really true of relationships in general. Without further ado, last but not least, Mr. Armaan.
Oh yeah.
You have a really exciting topic. All of the topics have been exciting, but this one is also really cool.
Yeah.
You want to talk about role models? I think this is a really, really great topic. I think that's one that's relevant to everybody. So you have the floor.
The way I want to break this up is I think we can first talk about, I guess, just general inspirations and role models, and then talk about mainly like family role models and like friends. And then maybe perhaps talk about some of your role models in college. So I think the first thing I want to ask is, if you can come up with one, who do you think is your biggest role model or person that you look up to? So that could either be like an athlete, a musician, an actor, actress, or it could be someone personal to you. I think I'm just curious to know what you guys are going to say.
Hedy Lamarr for me. I don't know if you guys know Hedy Lamarr. So she was an actress in the 50s who also, by the way, developed the LTE and Wi-Fi bands that are in all our phones.
Wow.
Awesome.
I'm not entirely 100% sure on the story. Don't quote me on this, but I believe her husband was like a Nazi spy, and she overheard a meeting where they were developing sonar technology, and she just from the conversation like reverse engineered this tech. And so
That's insane.
That is a woman in STEM.
Yeah, she was brilliant. I think they made a movie in like the 2000s, like Who's Calling Haiti Lamar, I think. And just the sort of, mentality that you can do both sort of like a very technical and scientific profession while also still having time for the creative. That's something that's really spoken to me. I'm really big into editing, and I feel like that's a good balance there. And, I think when I kind of like look at her life and how just the magnitude of things that she accomplished, it shows that like you're never stuck in sort of one path or one way of doing things. There's so many, you can balance so many things at once and always pick up new interests and pick up new paths. And so for me, when I heard her story, I'm like, that's just absolutely incredible. So
yeah, I don't want to get too deep into this, but I was like thinking about this question, and I still cannot come up with one person. And I feel like that says a lot about me. Like the one thing I've been thinking as we like have done this podcast is like, I want to have, not that I'm like depressed or anything, but I want to have more of a reason to like, get up every day, like look up to something, look up to someone. I don't, like I said, I don't know what academic path I want to go down yet, or like work path. And I don't know who to look up to in terms of like what I want to do with my life. Like none of the people who like were part of my except my mom and my family, of course, none of the people who were part of my childhood are like are people I stick with now. And it's honestly kind of sad. It's just the way it happened. I feel like I left childhood and I'm in like a new life now. Like nobody has come with me from like, my old life to my new life, which I'm not sad about, but I feel like it hasn't given me anyone to like constantly like stick with and look up to. And, we could all say, Mom, my mom is my role model, and she is. But I feel like, as I'm in college now, I don't talk with her as much. I don't like listen to her as much, like in terms of like, listening what she's done, what she has to say. So I feel like I don't have anyone. A little sad.
That's okay though. I mean, I think times where you're sort of like finding your way. Like I think that those are the times I've been kind of the most open to hearing like new perspectives and stuff. And I think for me, like some of the biggest role models in my life, like just personally, were ones I never expected to be. Like they were not sort of like the traditional people like I was aspiring to be, or maybe like I was told to look up to. For instance, my 10th grade English teacher, he was just this absolutely just the definition of like a genuine person, just absolutely living his like authentic self every day. And, he really embodied that mindset of, he was going along this very traditional, he's going to be a lawyer, going to be really make a lot of money, be really successful. And he realized he hated it. And he gave it up and said, I want to teach. And he's like, I don't care that I'm maybe giving up a salary or giving up some certain things. Like this is meaningful to me. And I think that's sort of something that we all kind of know, but not everybody follows. I think once you start seeing like how expensive everything is, and going back to like the spending versus saving thing, like it's easy to then say like, okay, I'll value money a little bit more. And so, but it was really interesting to see someone who truly did embody that of like, I'm just going to do what's meaningful to me and not necessarily, worry about like safety or taking a safe path. And that completely kind of changed my outlook. So, that for me was big. Not sure how exactly we got on this, but
no, that's really inspiring. And I just want to ask you, Lawrence, is there someone, and they don't necessarily have to be in your life at the moment, but is there someone that really made an impact on you in a positive way that you remember or that you want to talk about?
The one person that I can think of, so I'm Jewish and I went to a synagogue for like, I guess 20 years. I was in my mommy's belly when I went to my synagogue. And like the rabbi there, he started when I was 8. So I guess I've known him for 12 years now. And the one thing that I look up to him for is that being in the Jewish community, we're very, I feel like closed off is the right word. Like we're not open to like diversity and whatever, but my synagogue really was. Like we have people coming from all over, all different nationalities, and my rabbi is also gay. And so I really did look up to him. But the one thing that like deters me from saying that is like he never talked about it with anyone. And if you ask any gay person, it's like not a thing you bring up like willy-nilly, but like he still really never talked about it. Like I went to a youth group when I was in my synagogue, like while I was in high school, and he was like always there and half of us were gay. And he never talked about it. And I just like, we would always talk about it because like we all related to each other that way, but he never would. So that's why it like deters me from saying him. But if there was one person, it would be him.
Okay. That's good. Good to hear.
So Valentina, have you thought about this at all?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the classic answer here and say my mom. Also, along with that, my mom's mom, my grandma. I feel like in some way, like they're very. I'm a combination of both of their personalities. My mom is a very strong woman, immigrant woman, came here to this country with a child. That was me, and like raised me. I mean, obviously my dad did too. Like they were both my parents, but my dad was always working longer hours, and my mom was working a full-time job, but still raising me and just being so always herself. And she's a very peculiar woman. I always say the person that you guys know that reminds me the most of my mom is Amber. Amber, like, so imagine Amber's personality, but as a grown Latin woman, that is my mom. And so she's very quirky, she's silly and everything, but she's so caring. And I feel like she's very serious too, like about life and the way she carries herself. She's very aware of like how the world perceives, how society perceives like Latin women in this country. And so she's like, that doesn't ever limit her and stop her. And so that's just been an inspiration for me growing up. And then my grandma, she is the most, we always say when we talk about popular people earlier, she must be the most popular person in the world because so my grandma was from this tiny little village in Peru, and she was the only teacher in that village. So every single child's godmother, because Peru's Catholic, right? And so everyone is baptized. Every single child of that village, they asked my grandma to be their godmother. So my grandma has over 100 godchildren. And so she is, and it's insane because like now, you know, people make it out and then they like move around the country. So she's well into her retirement at this point. Here's a little anecdote, but it's just because I want to like, this is kind of energy that I want to follow myself is. So in retirement, she's traveling with my grandpa around the world. And they joke about how like, oh, she knows everyone everywhere. But mostly it was in Peru that she knew everyone. And so they go on a trip to Russia. And they're with one of my uncles. And they like literally leave the airport. And my uncle's like, oh, that'd be hilarious if we like ran into one of your godchildren right now. Like, what are the odds? And they step outside the airport. And the second they're crossing the street, some random man goes, Señora Dorita, which is like Mrs. Dorita, which was my grandma's name. And it was just one of those. And it's a story that we all tell as a family because it's a big family. My mom has 8 siblings. That it just like, she was so And she was also like a bit quirky and like pretty serious too. The women in my family are very serious. I feel like I'm not at all. So that's where I'm a little different. But that kind of just like wanting to have relationships with so many different people and like being so open to being a role. I mean, she was literally like people's godmother. Like that is like a role model figure, like a symbolic one, at the very least. And so, and she willingly took that title. And my mom always tells stories about how she was growing up and stuff.
Well, I have a couple of role models. I think I'll start off with the big major role model, which is my mom as well. What a unique answer, guys. My mom worked full time. She moved around a lot across India. She moved 17 times. So she never stayed in like a school for more than 1 year because my grandfather was a colonel in the Indian military and he fought in the 1970 India versus Pakistan war. So he was a colonel and he was in charge of all the combat engineers in the war. And so wherever he went, our family went. So my mom and her brother, my uncle, and then my grandmother. And so my mom learned to be so independent because of that. And I feel like she learned to embrace change by being in so many different environments. And I admire the fact that she's so well connected with people, even though she like it's insane how she'd still like have so many memories with people, even if she was only with them for a year. And I really admire that quality in her because that really made me understand that, you know, no matter where you go, like you can always connect with people. And so I am always impressed with her when it comes to that. And she's accomplished a lot in her life and she's going to continue accomplishing a lot. And I just admire how she's just so well connected and she's just so, I don't know, you can't really, like I mentioned, like when you love someone, you can't describe it. And I feel like with my mom, there's just so much to admire about her that it's hard to just put it all in one sentence. Like I'll take probably 5 hours explaining everything about her. But that's definitely an experience that sticks out to me is just the fact that she moved around a lot when she was growing up. And I will always salute her for that because there were times where she was living in the mountains out of like a tent and she was walking to school. And in a way, it almost feels absurd because like you were not living in a tent. Like there's no way. Like those are like old folk tales that like the parents say like, oh yeah, I walked 5 hours to school and everything. But like that was pretty much the reality for my mom. And I will always look up to her for that. And I'm like, okay, like I can do this. Like if she could do that, I can easily do this and walk 5 minutes to Curry 232.
Guys, this was awesome.
This was
very wholesome. I feel like we were talking some really, really great universal topics and stuff that means a lot to us. So I want to thank you again for coming because this was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us and organizing all this.
This was wonderful.
Jonas.
Yeah,
seriously.
This was great. I also want to give a special shout out to Sarav, who in the background of this entire shoot has been keeping this going. So thank you. And thank you all from home who's been watching. Hope to see you again soon. Take care, everybody.